Good morning, boys and girls. We are going to continue our instruction on questioning today. Yesterday, you learned that good readers always ask questions. They ask questions before they read, while they are reading, and after reading. You also learned that while you're reading a book, you're not always going to find the answers to your questions, but that's okay. Questioning helps you to understand what you are reading. I want you to make sure that you have a sheet of paper and a pencil because you will need it today as we read our story. If you need to pause the video and gather the materials that you need, please do that now. Okay, boys and girls, let's get started. I want you on your piece of paper to do the same thing that I've done here. I want you to write before, during, and after. You can put a line down the middle to make sure that you've separated each of your columns. If you need to pause the video, do that now. Okay, boys and girls, let's get started. So yesterday, I modeled for you what it looks like to preview a book, ask questions, read the book, and ask more questions, finish the book, and continue asking questions. You're going to do that with me today. So you'll notice that I'm going to pause several times and ask you to write down questions that you may have, and I'm going to do the same. Today we're going to be reading a story called Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. I want you to look at the cover. Lily's Purple Plastic Purse. And on your paper, I want you to write down one question that you may have. And I'm going to do the same. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to share with you two questions that I came up with before reading our new book. My first question is, what does Lily do with her purse? Because of the title and the pictures of seeing her prance around with this purse, I'm going to assume that this purse is very important to her. So I'm wondering, what's the purpose of it? What does she do with the purse in this story? My next question is, was Lily's purse a gift? Is that why it's going to be important to her in this story? Now share, what was the question that you came up with? Very good, boys and girls. Let's begin reading our story. And as we do, remember, I'm going to pause several times and I'm going to give you the opportunity to write down questions that you have about our story. Lily loved school. She loved the pointy pencils. She loved the squeaky chalk. And she loved the way her boots went clickety-clickety-click down the long, shiny hallways. Lily loved the privacy of her very own desk. She loved the fish sticks and chocolate milk every Friday in the lunchroom. And most of all, she loved her teacher, Mr. Slinger. Mr. Slinger was as sharp as a tack. He wore artistic shirts. He wore glasses on a chain around his neck, and he wore a different colored tie for each day of the week. "Wow," said Lily. That was just about all she could say. Wow. Okay, boys and girls, I'm going to pause there and write down a question that I have. question is, was Mr. Slinger Lily's favorite teacher? I'm wondering that because the way he was described in our book. Do you have a question that you want to write down? You can pause the video and do that now. Okay, boys and girls, let's continue reading. Instead of greeting students or good morning pupils, Mr. Slinger winked and said, howdy. He thought that desks and rows were old-fashioned and boring. Do you rodents think you can handle a semicircle? And he always provided the most tasty snacks, things that were curly and crunchy and cheesy. I want to be a teacher when I grow up, said Lily. Me too, said her friends, Chester and Wilson and Victor. At home, Lily pretended to be Mr. Slinger. I am the teacher, she told her baby brother, Julius. Listen up. Lily even wanted her own set of deluxe picture encyclopedias. What's with Lily? Asked her mother. I thought she wanted to be a surgeon or an ambulance driver or a diva, said her father. It must be because of her new teacher, Mr. Slinger, said her mother. Wow, said her father. That was just about all he could say. Wow. Whenever the students had free time, they were permitted to go to the light bulb lab in the back of the classroom. They expressed their ideas creatively through drawing and writing. Lily went often. She had a lot of ideas. She drew pictures of Mr. Slinger, and she wrote stories about him too. During sharing time, Lily showed her creations to the entire class. Wow, said Mr. Slinger. That was just about all he could say. Wow. Boys and girls, do you have any questions about our book so far? If you do, you can pause the video and write down your questions now. Okay, boys and girls, let's continue reading. When Mr. Slinger had bus duty, Lily stood in line even though she didn't ride the bus. Lily raised her hand more than anyone else in class, even if she didn't know the answer. And she volunteered to stay after school to clap erasers. I want to be a teacher when I grow up, said Lily. Excellent choice, said Mr. Slinger. One morning, Lily came to school especially happy. She had gone shopping with her Grammy over the weekend. Lily had a new pair of movie star sunglasses, complete with glittery diamonds and a chain like Mr. Slinger's. She had 3 shiny quarters, and best of all, she had a brand new purple plastic purse that played a jaunty tune when it was opened. I'm going to stop right here and write down a question that I have about our story. If you need to pause the video and write down a question that you have, you may do that now. Boys and girls, my question is something bad going to happen to Lily's purse? I'm asking that because I know that the author just described how important this purse is to Lily. And I know that sometimes in stories, main characters can have big problems that they have to work through to solve. I'm wondering if this might become a big problem for her. Maybe something will happen to her new purse. Let's read on and find out. Lily wanted to show everyone. Not now, said Mr. Slinger. Listen to our story. Lily had a hard time listening. Lily really wanted to show everyone. Not now, said Mr. Slinger. Let's be considerate of our classmates. Lily had a hard time being considerate. Lily really wanted to show everyone. Not now, said Mr. Slinger. Wait until recess or sharing time. But Lily could not wait. I'm going to pause here because I have a new question that I want to ask. I asked the question, is Lily going to share about her purse and get into trouble? Let's read on. The glasses were so glittery, the quarters were so shiny, and the purse played such nice music, not to mention how excellent it was for storing school supplies. Look, Lily whispered fiercely. Look, everyone, look at what I've got. Everyone looked, including Mr. Slinger. He was not amused. Boys and girls, if you need to pause the video to ask a question, go ahead and do that now. Let's continue reading. I'll just keep your things at my desk until the end of the day, said Mr. Slinger. They'll be safe there, and then you can take them home. Lily's stomach lurched. She felt like crying. Her glasses were gone. Her quarters were gone. Her purple plastic purse was gone. Lily longed for her purse all morning. She was even too sad to eat the snack Mr. Slinger served before recess. That afternoon, Lily went to the light bulb lab. She was still very sad. She thought, and she thought, and she thought. And then she became angry. She thought, and she thought, and she thought some more. And then she became furious. She thought, and she thought, and she thought a bit longer. And then she drew a picture of Mr. Slinger. Oh, boys and girls, I have another question I need to ask. Let's see if you're wondering what I'm wondering. I'm wondering, did Lily draw a bad picture of Mr. Slinger? Remember what our story said. She thought and she thought and she thought. And remember, the more she thought, she became extremely angry. And then she drew a picture. I wonder if it was a bad picture. What do you think? Let's find out. Right before the last bell rang, Lily sneaked the drawing into Mr. Slinger's book bag. Big, fat, mean Mr. Stealing Teacher. Claws. Bad. Thief. Bad. Wanted by FBI. P.S. I do not want to be a teacher when I grow up. When all of the students were buttoned and zipped and snapped and tied and ready to go home, Mr. Slinger strolled over to Lily and gave her purple plastic purse back. It's a beautiful purse, said Mr. Slinger. Your quarters are nice and jingly, and those glasses are absolutely fabulous. You may bring them back to school as long as you don't disturb the rest of the class. I do not want to be a teacher when I grow up, Lily said as she marched out of the classroom. Boys and girls, I have a new question, and maybe you have one that looks like mine. I want you to pause the video and write your question down as I write mine down. take a look at my question. It says, will Mr. Slinger find the picture? What do you guys think? You think he's going to find it and she's going to get in big trouble? Let's find out. On her way home, Lily opened her purse. Her glasses and quarters were inside, and so was a note from Mr. Slinger. It said, "Today was a difficult day. Tomorrow will be better." There was also a small bag of tasty snacks at the bottom of the purse. Lily's stomach lurched. She felt like crying. She felt simply awful. Lily ran all the way home and told her mother and father everything. Now, boys and girls, another question that I have right now about my story, I'm wondering, what's going to happen when Lily tells her parents everything? Will they make her tell Mr. Slinger the truth? Is she feeling bad because she realizes that she's done something wrong and that Mr. Slinger was not trying to be unkind? Let's find out what happens in our book. Instead of watching her favorite cartoons, Lily decided to sit in the uncooperative chair. I'll stay here a million years for Mr. Slinger. Why does everything always happen to me? 1051, 1052, 1099. That night, Lily drew a new picture of Mr. Slinger and wrote a story about him too. Lily was really sorry, so everyone forgave her, even her parents, even her stinky baby brother, even her especially incredible teacher. And then the sun shined its smiley face down on everyone and everything, even the bugs and worms. The end. Listen up, I forgive everyone. Kind, good, nice, could be the principal. Worms, I am really sorry. Lily's mother wrote a note, and Lily's father baked some tasty snacks for Lily to take to school the next day. I think Mr. Slinger will understand, said Lily's mother. I know he will, said Lily's father. The next morning, Lily got to school early. These are for you, Lily said to Mr. Slinger, because I'm really sorry. Boys and girls, I've got a new question. I'm wondering, is Mr. Slinger going to forgive her for what she's done? Do you have a question that you want to add to your chart? You can pause the video and do that now. Okay, boys and girls, let's continue. Mr. Slinger read the story, and he looked at the picture, and he read the note, and he sampled the snacks. Wow, said Mr. Slinger. That was just about all he could say. Wow. What do you think we should do with this? asked Mr. Slinger. Could we just throw it away? Asked Lily. Excellent idea, said Mr. Slinger. During sharing time, Lily demonstrated the many uses and unique qualities of her purple plastic purse, her shiny quarters, and her glittery movie star sunglasses. And then she did a little performance using them as props. It's called interpretive dance, said Lily. Mr. Slinger joined in. Wow, said the entire class. That was just about all they could say. Wow. Throughout the rest of the day, Lily's purse and quarters and sunglasses were tucked safely inside her desk. She peeked at them often, but did not disturb a soul. Right before the last bell rang, Mr. Slinger served Lily snacks to everyone's delight. What do you want to be when you grow up? Asked Mr. Slinger. A teacher, everyone responded. Lily's response was the loudest. Excellent choice, said Mr. Slinger. As the pupils filed out of the classroom, Lily held her purple plastic purse close to her heart. Mr. Slinger was right. It had been a better day. Lilly ran and skipped and hopped and flew all the way home. She was so happy, and she really did want to be a teacher when she grew up. That is, when she didn't want to be a dancer or a surgeon or an ambulance driver or a diva or a pilot or a hairdresser or a scuba diver. The end. Boys and girls, use this opportunity to pause the video and write down any questions that you still have about your book, and I'm going to do the same. Boys and girls, I want to share the questions that I've come up with. After reading, I still have 2 questions about my story. Number 1, did Lilly learn her lesson? Did she learn the lesson that she really should not have drawn the bad picture? And number 2, will Lilly ever draw a bad picture again? Those are things I'm still wondering. Boys and girls, yesterday I told you that even after reading a story, you can revisit your questions and determine, were you able to find the answers to those questions? So let's do that now. Before we read, I wrote down 2 questions. What does Lilly do with her purse? Well, we found out exactly what Lilly did with her purse. She tried to share about it when she was told to put it away and to wait until the appropriate time. And number 2, was Lily's purse a gift? It was a gift. Remember, she went shopping with her Grammy, and her Grammy purchased the purse and other items for her. So I did find answers to both of the questions that I asked. Look at your question on your before chart, and I want you to think about, were you able to find the answer to your question? Now let's continue. Let's look at the questions we asked while we were reading. The first question says, was Mr. Slinger Lily's favorite teacher? Now, our book did not explicitly state that Mr. Slinger was Lily's favorite teacher, but we were able to infer, that's a fancy word for figure out on our own, using our clues, that he was a very special teacher for her. Remember, she wanted to copy everything that Mr. Slinger did, and she even wanted to be a teacher when she grew up. Number 2, is something bad going to happen to Lily's purse? We found the answer to that question also. Nothing bad happened to Lily's purse, but it was her choices that made something happen. Number 3, is Lilly going to share about her purse and get into trouble? Yes, we found the answer to that question. She did try to share her purse without permission, and she did get into trouble. And last, we have 2 more. Did Lilly draw a bad picture of Mr. Slinger? We found the answer to that question also. She did, in fact, draw a bad picture of Mr. Slinger. And will Mr. Slinger find the picture? Well, in our story, it wasn't that Mr. Slinger found the picture. It was how he handled the situation. Remember, he wrote that little note to Lilly and put it in her purse for her to find, and she realized that she had made a horrible mistake. She shared with her parents the bad mistake that she made, and she tried to fix the problem. We do not have answers to our questions in our after section because the book ended, so we'll never know the answers to these questions. Remember, boys and girls, that good readers always ask questions before, during, and after they're reading a book. You know, this is an awesome story. I love the author, Kevin Hinks. He has some valuable lessons that we can learn through some of the most special characters I've ever read about. I hope that you learned some lessons from our book as well. One of the lessons that we can learn from this is that, there's a right time for everything. And whenever our teacher or our mom and dad or grandma or whatever grown up is in our life, whenever they tell us to wait with a happy heart, we have to wait with a happy heart and wait for the appropriate time. Another lesson that was very valuable was the lesson that, not every day is going to be a bad day. Sometimes you're going to have bad days, but the next day is a day for a fresh start. And also, whenever we make a bad choice, because sometimes we're going to do that, even grown-ups make bad choices sometimes, we always have something called grace. Grace allows us to step forward the next day and make the right choice and fix the issue. I hope that you enjoyed the book, and I'll see you guys later.